Hi, okay, we're here at Sakata today. We're doing a bit of butternuts and pumpkins and let's say everything that goes along with that. So we're speaking to Andre de Villiers here from Sakata. He's going to give us a bit of more insight on what's going on here. Hi Andre, how are you?
Good, thanks, and yourself?
Good. So tell us a bit more about the butternuts here. How long has this been growing?
Okay, these have been transplanted about 8 weeks ago, so yeah.
So not from they basically were seeded before that, and then the seedlings were planted.
Yeah, the seedlings were planted. It was sown about 2 weeks before that, so yeah.
So
anyway,
that's
anything from 2 weeks, your seedlings will be ready to be transplanted.
Okay, so this was transplanted. What's the main reason for using seedlings instead of seed directly into the soil?
There's various reasons. Obviously, if you plant early in your season and temperatures are still cooler, then the germination can be a problem, so then you'd rather make seedlings.
With the fluctuations in temperature that you get in the night temperatures.
Season. And then another big problem can be mice that eat your seed before they
Does the mice eat the seed?
Yeah. So that is another main reason why they would rather plant seedlings, because the seed is expensive. Especially your hybrids.
Okay, I'm with you. So then basically you plant seedlings, and then in about 8 weeks your butternuts should look something more or less like this. You can see very, very healthy plants here. There's the butternut at the bottom here. Tell me quickly, in terms of how many or for how long does it take for you to start harvesting, and how many times do you harvest on this?
You can start the harvest about 90 days after transplant, and depending on how long you can keep your plants healthy, you can have up to 2 to 3 harvests, also depending on variety.
Okay, I'm with you. And in terms of your production risks, what are the most common problems that the people experience during the growing season?
Okay, some of the most important diseases is your powdery mildew.
And you've actually got a block here. Let's take a look quickly. Okay, there you can see here's a block with powdery mildew, and that's basically what it does to the plant. It breaks down all the all the chlorophyll and basically destroys your factory, so you can't produce any fruits anymore. So that's one of the main things. How do you go about preventing powdery mildew?
Well, you have to spray preventative. So even before you start seeing your disease, you have to have been spraying already. So this is already a bit late. If it looks like this, you've got a problem. Yeah.
And in terms of your different cultivars and stuff like that, is there cultivars that's more resistant?
Yeah, you can clearly see the variety up there. That is clearly, you can see that's a resistant variety compared to this one. Doesn't have any resistance. So yeah, we luckily have some resistant varieties.
So the moral of this story is talk to your Sakata agent and they will give you a resistant variety to powdery mildew, at least. If you know you're in a humid area and you've got a risk of this, then it's very, very important to talk about that. And then some of the other risks, diseases or pests that could occur.
Yeah, one of the other big problems is pumpkin fly. You also have to spray preventative. When you start seeing your first fruits developing, your first female flowers, you already have to start preventative spraying for that.
And what is the main, if you've got an infestation of pumpkin fly, how does that affect your plants at the end of the day?
The pumpkin fly will sting the fruit at a very small stage.
Yeah.
And then the fruit will still mature, but obviously you've got the place where it stung the fruit, and you can't market the fruit.
So you can't market that at the end of the day. And okay, so that's specifically with pumpkin fly. And if you look at things like aphids and thrips like that.
Yeah, it's also important to control your sucking insects like your aphids, thrips, your whitefly, because they are transmitters of viruses. Which is another main problem.
And we just have a look here. Here's a plant that's got a virus. If you can look at that one. So yeah, not very pretty. So let's say the plant is at this stage and you've seen the virus now. What can you do to basically try to rescue this plant, or is it done for?
This specific plant is already too late for, so that's also why it's important to spray preventative before the virus enters.
So it's important to do effective management of all the insects and pests to specifically be able to keep viruses out and things like that.
Yeah.
Is there certain cultivars that's more resistant to viruses than others?
Yeah, you've got some cultivars with virus resistance, so obviously they will be less susceptible, although it doesn't mean they can't get it, but yeah, they are less susceptible than your cultivars with no resistance.
Then the other thing is, as soon as you see this and you want to identify the virus, it's very, very difficult to do that with the naked eye. That needs to be sent to a lab that's accredited, that can actually identify the virus, and so that you know in next seasons what you need to do. The other thing I want to know from you is, in terms of irrigation, is there certain advantages and disadvantages from using certain type of irrigation, like drip for example, versus pivot irrigation or overhead sprayers or something like that?
Yeah, especially in your more humid climates, drip irrigation will be better, because your leaves will remain dry, and then the chance of getting the powdery mildew, for instance, is less. So yeah.
So in the more humid conditions, it's better to use the drip irrigation. And just one other thing that we were talking about just now is with your insects and stuff like that, it's very important to keep your field slinging around your
your insects
land.
They live in the weeds next to the field, so it's very important, if you can, to keep your fields clean around the field,
so that you don't get that migration of the insects from the field to your land. So the short and the long of it, so if you look here, so this is more or less how you want your butternuts to look. Healthy plants, correct variety, enough water, and be sure to spray preventative for all the different the mildews and all those things, and then be sure to do effective insect control. So yeah, that's it for butternuts basically. Thank you, Andre. So yeah, this was informative. We'll see you next time. Cheers.